What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything you need to know about and what's happening here in our country on a daily basis. Well, buckle up because the US has officially reached the debt ceiling. That's right. Apparently, though, this is only the first stage of the debt ceiling. And now the US government is basically going to start running through the money in their pocketbooks or in their checking accounts before they will officially hit the last stage where they will run out of money completely. And that will be the final stage where it's end game or game over. And basically, the US government has done what they've called extraordinary measures to pay their bills, where they're going to start drastic cutting. Extraordinary measures. Yeah, think about that. Think about how many people have to do extraordinary measures with their finances here. Well, the US government is doing that here as well. Here's what Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has to say and how this could affect our government, our people, the US military, people on Social Security, and more. Take a listen.
First, I want to ask you about something else really top of your mind, and that is the debt ceiling. You informed Congress that the debt ceiling has been reached and that you have to employ extraordinary measures to keep the whole thing going. How long can you do that for? What kind of extraordinary measures?
Well, extraordinary measures involve things like the Civil Service Trust Fund and investments that we make in government securities for employees in the government-funded programs. And I indicated in my letter to Congress that we feel confident they can last until early June. But beyond that, there's no guarantee. The actual date at which we would no longer be able to use these measures is quite uncertain, but it could conceivably come as early June.
Okay, so I want to just quote that letter that you are referring to just a little bit. Failure to meet the government's obligations would cause irreparable harm to the United States economy, the livelihoods of all Americans, and global financial stability. So, in brief, what kind of irreparable harm, and particularly for American households, how would average American households experience this?
The United States is a country that since 1789 has always paid all of its bills. And the knowledge that the U.S. government can be trusted and counted on to do that underlies the foundations, really, of the entire global financial system. U.S. Treasury securities are the safest investment on the planet, and we would certainly experience, at a minimum, a downgrading of our debt. If that happened, our borrowing costs would increase, and every American would see that their borrowing costs would increase as well. On top of that, a failure to make payments that are due, whether it's to bondholders or to Social Security recipients or to our military, would undoubtedly cause a recession in the U.S. economy and could cause a global financial crisis. It would certainly undermine the role of the dollar as a reserve currency that is used in transactions all over the world. And many people would lose their jobs, and certainly their borrowing costs would rise.
So, yeah, they have let the debt limit pass. So now, apparently, a lot of people didn't even think this could happen. And we've officially reached the debt limit for the first time ever. Congress is so irresponsible. It's unbelievable here. They're playing with Americans' lives. And now they're going to let it go as long as possible. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable here. And what comes next, who knows, because we've never had this happen. And now they're going to let it go as long as possible. Here's the thing is that the Republicans and Democrats aren't even really at the negotiating table yet. And the White House is saying that they don't want to even negotiate, that it should just be raised unconditionally. Republicans are saying they want massive cuts pretty much all across the board. Republicans are talking about, Kevin McCarthy was asked, and he said a $75 billion cut to the national defense of our country, the military, the Army, the Navy, Air Force, pretty much all of that. He said, yes, that was a major consideration because remember, they're over 50% of the budget of the country, the $1.7 trillion. And a lot of Republicans are talking about cuts to Social Security and Medicare. That's another large part of the budget. A lot of people are upset about that because, well, we pay into Social Security and Medicare. So this is another massive, massive problem because we fund that. But the government, on the other hand, looks at that and says, well, this is part of the government budget, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of absurd because we fund that. But then the government looks at that and says, well, this is part of our budget. This is money that they see going out. Yeah. Utterly ridiculous. You guys can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. But if they want to cut parts of the budget, you look at the defense of our country, Army, military, Army, Navy, all the branches, right? That's over half of the budget. Okay, it was like $865 billion. And then you look at money like Social Security and Medicare, and you combine those, and that's over 2/3 of the budget. Okay, it's you'd have to add it up, but I don't know, maybe close to 75% of the budget. So when you start to look at that, and besides that, there's not a lot left over. Okay, remember they just cut SNAP benefits to basically everybody else that was receiving them. The extra SNAP benefit bonuses, that's already been cut. That's going to be ending here at the end of February. Those are stopping. Some people will get them into March, but that's only because some states are behind a month and are paying the extra SNAP benefits 1 month behind. But SNAP benefits are ending. I just did a video here on this. If you don't know about this, I'll link you to that video here at the end of this video. But yeah, it's kind of sad because we're dealing with 40+ year high inflation. I mean, it's coming down a little bit, but not in a lot of areas like food. And now the government's playing with our lives even more. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts on this. Also, some other big news here about the Supreme Court. You can see the headline here, Supreme Court embarrassed by the opinion leak, as they did this big investigation about why the Roe v. Wade opinion, which eventually became their ruling, they did this big investigation on why this was leaked before it actually became their ruling, which actually struck down the Roe v. Wade, ruling that has been a rule or a law for 50 years here. And after their big investigation, they still have not been able to find who leaked it. They investigated everybody, all the Supreme Court members and all the aides and everybody who worked with the Supreme Court, and nobody, they still don't know who did it. They did have several aides that said that they did share it with their spouses, but they still don't know who leaked the Supreme Court ruling. So after all this investigation, nobody knows who leaked it. Yeah, so not a good look for the Supreme Court. In fact, recent polling shows that the lack of trust in the Supreme Court is at an all-time low. And especially, in fact, we've actually seen a lot of polls and a lot of things show that the ruling of striking down Roe versus Wade is also at an all-time low of trustworthiness on that. And it seems like more people were unhappy with that ruling than were happy. And going into this last midterm elections, we had more women register to vote as first-time voters than ever. So we did have a lot of women sign up to vote, and a lot of people were wondering if that was maybe a reason why the red wave that a lot of Republicans thought was going to happen was not bigger than it could have been. So the Republicans did take over the House of Representatives, but were not able to take over the Senate. If you were watching my channel, though, you did know that the Republicans mathematically had a much harder time to take over the Senate. They had many more seats that were up for re-election than the Democrats did have. Now, next election, I haven't looked into the numbers yet, but that might be a different case because remember that about every 2 years, only about a third of the senators are up for re-election because senators serve 6-year terms, unlike House of Representatives, where everybody's up for re-election every 2 years, which does actually seem a little bit daunting if you were a House of Representative member. Every 2 years, you have to go through a new campaign and re-elect. But in other kind of things, you think about like George Santos, that guy from New York, who just kind of lied about his whole history and everything. It does kind of, in his case, it does kind of seem like, well, maybe it's a good thing he's not serving a 6-year term, and but imagine trying to go through a whole re-election thing and having to like go through that basically every year and a half. Does seem like kind of a lot, but maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not. I don't know. You can let me know your thoughts here on this. In some kind of look at the news that just came out about him. A couple things to go along with his lies here, that he's admitted he's lied on multiple references here. Newly elected Republican Representative George Santos has claimed that his mother escaped the South Tower on 9/11 has now been discredited by immigration documents. Just the newest lie here. Also, according to Politico, George Santos appears to admit he has a drag queen past in a Wiki post. A user with the name Anthony DeVolder wrote in 2011 that they won several drag pageants. Anthony DeVolder is a Santos alias, according to Politico. And they go into all the details on how they know all this and look this up and how many times he used this alias, according to journalistic investigations, which is kind of crazy, and how much they're actually uncovering about this guy. Unfortunately, it's after he has been elected and after he has stated multiple times that he will not resign. Also, unfortunately, it's after he has gotten 2 House committee seats, basically saying that he's going to be on the leadership teams of 2 committees just appointed by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, which is kind of crazy for a newly elected freshman to be put on 2 committees. Wow. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments, and I will keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country on a daily basis. I know you can't make this stuff up. So let me know your thoughts here. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on new videos. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thanks so much for liking and sharing these videos. Here's some videos you can watch next. You can click here to watch my newest video. And here's a video about Social Security saying that could be the end of it, how we know it. So click one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.